Let's talk about The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. This is the first book in the Dandelion Dynasty, and it's a pretty thick boy. And while the series only spans 4 books, it is truly ambitious in scope. Just this first book alone covered, I think, about 10 years. I might be a little over or under, but that's about the time span that this book covers. And it seeks to tell a story that is as grand in scope as any other epic fantasy series. And that includes things like The Wheel of Time and the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Obviously, to do that in 4 books, there have to be some trade-offs. And the way Ken Liu handled telling this much story in these few books is, I think, one of the best ways I've ever seen it done. He basically tells this entire book the way you would tell classical mythology. So every chapter, every page, every little subsection is kind of like its own short story, told in a manner similar to how historically we've told mythology, parables, and classical stories. That might be a little confusing, but I think if you just read a few pages, you'll understand what I mean. What that does mean, however, is that this book is incredibly fast-paced, as it needs to be, and with that, you don't spend nearly as much time as you might want to with specific characters. And other than perhaps 2 characters, you don't really get to dig deep into the motivations and the actual characteristics of any of the side characters. You get one exposition dump about them when you first meet them, typically, and then from there on out, you only see them every now and then. I did find that to be a little frustrating at times, which is why this isn't a perfect book to me. But again, I think that's Ken Liu's point. He wants to tell a really epic, grand story in the tone of and drawing inspiration from Chinese mythology. Another con that flows from his style and how he's approaching telling the story is that there were times when I found myself rolling my eyes at how cliche the character descriptions were. But again, I think that's more of a feature and not a bug. It's just not something that I jived with personally. Overall, I'm going to finish this series. I thoroughly enjoyed this first book. I think I would give it like a 9 out of 10. Again, I try to judge books based on what they're trying to do, not what I think they should do. And I think for what Ken Liu was trying to accomplish, he did it brilliantly. The last con I'm going to mention, the last 2 cons actually, now that I think about it. First is that despite the fact that he's trying to tell this as a classical mythology, classical story, I didn't find there to be a single character that I'm morally aligned with. And I think that's something we've truly lost in modern literature. You know, characters who are actually fundamentally good people. And maybe some of you who have read this book will disagree with me. But I think if you are going to take this approach of telling the story like a classical mythology, why not have a few characters in here that are actually morally sound characters? Relatedly, there's a weird section in this book where Ken Liu portrays some characters rationalizing and even justifying cheating and polygamy. And look, I understand some people might disagree with me on this, but that left a really bad taste in my mouth. But I acknowledge that this is a minor critique. I can't wait to see how the rest of this series unfolds. I think I have some inclinations of where the second book is headed, but obviously I'm really excited to see how it all concludes. And I did enjoy reading this book. I breezed through it a lot faster than I would normally breeze through a book of this size. So check it out. And as always, drop a follow and go check out my Substack or else.